Hey everyone, just a really quick video this week as I try to get caught back up on my weekly schedule here. Anyway, I get a lot of requests to do track plans. A lot of people are trying to do a layout in whatever size it might be, and they want some ideas or want help on trying to design a layout to fit that space. And anyway, I just don't have any time to do that kind of work at this time. And so I thought I would just do a brief overview of some of the resources you can look to online to find track plans, as well as do a really quick tutorial of how to use AnyRail software, which is what I normally use, because it's a really easy software to use to do your track plans. And while it is an older version that I use, it'll be pretty much the same with the newer one. You'll just have a lot of new features. So anyway, let's take a look at some places you can find some existing track plans. So obviously I do have a page on my website on steves-trains.com that has track plans, and those are ones that I've developed over the years for various projects or just to kind of think about. And so you can go on there and see some ideas, as well as see the parts lists of the Kata Unitrack. There'll be a link to the AnyRail file if you want to download that and import that into your version of the software and play with it. And so that can be one starting off point. But a great resource is the Model Railroader Track Plans database. You can go on there, and basically all the layouts that have appeared in their magazine is pretty much going to be listed there somewhere. And you can sort by scale, by layout size, gauge, whatever you want to do, and kind of narrow things down to maybe fit your kind of what you're wanting to build. And that can be just a really good place to get ideas, because the track plans are all really nice. They have all the structures and scenery and that kind of stuff on there as well. So it makes it a really nice tool to kind of get some ideas going for your own project. Now, I have a resources page on my website that has a listing of additional locations you can go to get track plans, or to have people do those track plans for you. So the Journal of Model Railroad Design is one that I've talked about in the past. Rob Chant does that site, and he does a lot of really, really nice track plans on there, not just because of the design of the plan, but because he actually does like 3D views of everything with the structures and scenery and everything. And so they're just really nice plans. And so that can be a great resource as well. And I have Dubai Trains on here and other places that will do track plans for you. And they also have some of their designs available online for you to look at. So kind of go through some of these, get some more ideas, and those can be places to go to if you do want to have somebody do some track planning. So anyway, let me just show you a quick overview of how to use the AnyRail software. Okay, so here's a quick look at the AnyRail software that I typically use for a lot of my track planning. Now I'm using AnyRail 5 here, which is pretty old, because I'm using Crossover, which is a software that allows you to run Windows applications on a Mac without installing Windows. So it makes it a little bit more convenient. Basically, everything just acts as a Mac application. However, you can't do that typically with a lot of the newest versions of software that are out there. Someone has to go through and, tweak settings and things for every type of software that you might want for it to work on Crossover easily. I do also have a VM on here where I have the full-blown Windows as a virtual machine that I can launch and run the current version if I want, but this is fine for me most of the time, so that's what I use. So with the software, you can go through, set up the size of your layout that you want, change the zoom in terms of how big it displays that layout that you're creating. You can go through and select your track library that you want to use. In this case, I'm using Kata Unitrack like I typically do. And so it does make it pretty straightforward. And you can go through and just start selecting track pieces that you want to sort of add to your layout. You maybe throw a bunch out there and then just start dragging pieces around until you can connect them one to each other. If you bring the ends close together, it'll just snap together. And then you can go ahead, rotate sections of track as you need to for everything to fit on your plan. Continue adding pieces, maybe some straight pieces here. That's actually not quite straight, so we'll go ahead and straighten that out. And then you can just continue adding more straight pieces or whatever type of track pieces you want. Maybe you want to add a turnout. Go down here, find some of the turnouts and add one of those. And then just keep adding more sections of track and kind of start working on building out a simple plan like this. And it just makes it really easy, because you can click on a piece, delete it, click another piece and add it on. And so it makes it pretty fast and straightforward to just keep playing around with different layout design ideas. And it's a very low learning curve. It's really just a matter of clicking on pieces and dragging them to wherever you want. Again, if you just drag the pieces end to end, they snap together. You can click on a piece, hit delete, it goes away, or just click on a joint and click delete and then move the piece and put it somewhere else. So it's pretty straightforward. And everything works really well. Again, you can select different track libraries. So maybe you have something like this in Unitrack, but then you want to use some FlexTrack. So then you can go to your track library section and maybe you want to select Pico track. Pico Code 80 will connect pretty nicely to Kado Unitrack. Obviously, you have to worry about the roadbed height, so you have to use a cork roadbed or something like that underneath the flex track, so it lines up with the Kado Unitrack, which has that built-in roadbed. But the idea here is you can select different types of track and bring them on. So here's a piece of flex track connecting that to the Unitrack, and then you can maybe grab another piece of Kado Unitrack to try to complete this loop of track here, and then try to drag that in place. But maybe that piece is a little bit longer for that space you have left. So then you can click on the flex track, click on the end, drag it to shorten it so it's the right length, and can connect to the piece of Unitrack that you added in. Or maybe you want to do some type of curve with it, so you can hit delete on that joint. And then you can use the different grab points and kind of bend the track around if you want to do something like that. Or you can just grab the end of the track and move where the end is. And then once you get the end where you want it, you can again hit these grab points and kind of change how the track is shaped throughout that section of flex track. So it makes it really easy to go through and kind of just play with the layout design like this and do what you want to do. One thing that's also nice is you can add part numbers to the track, different settings like that. You can add the roadbed to kind of get an idea of how much space the track will take up when you have the roadbed in place. You can also just highlight an area of track and then create a section and change the color. So typically I like to use a lighter color just to make it a little bit easier to see part numbers and things like that. So that can make it kind of convenient when you're, especially printing something out. You don't want to necessarily use like a dark color that makes it hard to see the part numbers and that kind of thing as well. But all the object libraries in here can be handy. There's a lot more of these in the newer versions. This is again a pretty old version, so the number of objects is not real great, but you can add trees and things like that. There are also catalogs of structure kits and things like that. Not as many in N-Scale in this older version. Again, there's more in the newer versions. But you can come in here and say, go to Walther structures, and there's only a handful in here, but you can grab some of those, put them on the layout, and it can be a really fast way to kind of create a layout design with structures without having to draw everything by hand. You can actually draw like circles and lines and all that kind of thing by hand in here with individual objects like that, but that's obviously pretty tedious, and it's faster to export this into a drawing application if you want to go that route. But having these built-in structures, especially the newer versions, does make it nice for adding structures to a layout plan to get a much more complete looking plan very quickly. So anyway, I hope those ideas helped you out at least a little bit if you're trying to come up with your own track plan or thinking about your own ideas. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that it can actually be a lot of fun to do the design process for a layout. And so while some of the software can be a little bit confusing to learn, and obviously it can cost money in some cases, like the AnyRail software you can actually get a free trial of. And I think it's just a limit on how many pieces you use. I can't remember what the exact limit is before you have to actually pay for it, but you can get some of those as trials and try them out and see if it's something you can work with. But once you kind of figure out how to use them, it can be actually quite a bit of fun to play around with different ideas, and that can be kind of an aspect of the hobby by itself. So especially if you like drawing or just doing design stuff in general, that can be a pretty fun thing for you to do as well. So give it a try. It's not really that hard to do, and just a way to kind of enjoy the hobby besides actually building the layout itself. So anyway, I hope those ideas maybe helped you out a little bit, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching.